ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is video number 25 on Talks with Ramana Maharshi. This video starts with talk number 393. Devotee puts a question. There is a short account of the spiritual experiences of Saint Teresa in the March number of the Prabhupada Bharata. She was devoted to a figure of the Madonna which became animated to her sight and she was in bliss. Is it the same as Shakti Pata? Maharshi, the animated figure indicates depth of meditation, dhyana bala. Shaktipata prepares the mind for introversion. There is a process of concentration of mind on one's own shadow, which in due course becomes animated and answers questions put to it. That is due to strength of mind or depth of meditation. Whatever is external is also transitory. Such phenomena may produce joy for the time being, but abiding peace, that is shanti, does not result. This is got only by the removal of avidya, ignorance. Talk number 394. Devotee, how is the mind to be stilled? Maharshi, looking at the mind with the mind or fixing the mind in the self brings the mind under control of the self. Devotee, is there any yoga that is a process for it? Maharshi, Vichara, investigation alone will do. Talk number 395. Devotee, how is Purna Brahma to be attained? What is the method best suited to a Grihastha? Maharshi, you have already said Purna, that is perfection. Are you apart from Purna? If apart from it, will it be Purna? If not apart, how does the question arise? The knowledge that Brahma is a Purna and that you are not apart from the same is the finality. See it and you will find that you are not a Grihastha or any limited being. Devotee, what are the tattvas? Maharshi, knowledge of Purna Brahma will elucidate the other matters automatically. 12th April 1937, talk number 396. A Dutch lady, Mrs. Gongs, an ardent theosophist who had worked long in Java and is now living in Adyar, came here for a short visit. She asked, Theosophy speaks of tanha, meaning thirst for rebirth. What is the cause? Mercy, thirst for rebirth is the desire to be reborn so as to end successive births. The spirit is at present moribund. It must be revived so that rebirth may take place after the present apparent death. Forgetfulness of your real nature is the present death. Remembrance of it is the rebirth. It puts an end to successive births. Yours is eternal life. Devotee, I take tanha to mean clinging to life, the desire for eternal life. Mercy, no doubt it is so. How does the desire arise? Because the present state is unbearable. Why? Because it is not your true nature. Had it been your real nature, no desire would disturb you. How does the present state differ from your real nature? You are spirit in truth, however, that spirit is wrongly identifying itself with the gross body. The body has been projected by the mind. The mind itself has originated from the spirit. If the wrong identification ceases, there will be peace and permanent, untellable bliss. Devotee, life is of the body, and rebirth is to be incarnate in another body. Maharshi, mere change of body produces no effect. The ego associated with this body is transferred to another body. How can that satisfy anyone? Moreover, what is life? Life is existence, which is yourself. That is life eternal. Otherwise, can you imagine a time when you are not? That life is now conditioned by the body, and you wrongly identify your being with that of the body. Your life unconditioned. These bodies attach themselves to you as mental projections, and you are now afflicted by I am the body idea. If this idea seizes you are yourself, where or how were you before being born? Were you in sleep? How were you? You exist then too without the body. Then the ego arises, and then the mind which projects the body. I am the body, which is the result. Because the body exists, you see that it was born and that it will die, and transfer the idea to the self, saying that you are born and that you will die. In fact, you remain without the body in sleep. But now you remain with the body. The self can remain without the body, but the body cannot exist apart from the self. I am the body. Thought is ignorance. That the body is not apart from the self is knowledge. That is the difference between knowledge and ignorance. The body is a mental projection, the mind is the ego, and the ego arises from the self. So the body thought is distracting and stays away from the self. For whom is the body or the birth? It is not for the self, the spirit. It is for the non-self which imagines itself separate. So long as there is the sense of separation, there will be afflicting thoughts. If the original source is regained and the sense of separation is put an end to, there is peace. Consider what happens when a stone is thrown up. It leaves its source and is projected up. Try, tries to come down and is always in motion until it regains its source, where it is at rest. So also the waters of the ocean evaporate, form clouds which are moved by winds, condense into water, fall as rain, and waters roar down the hill in streams and rivers until they reach their original source, the ocean, reaching which they are at peace. Thus, you see, wherever there is a sense of separateness from the source, there is a agitation and movement until the sense of separateness is lost. So it is with yourself. Now that you identify yourself with the body, you think that you are separate from the spirit, the true self. You must regain your source before the false identity ceases and you are happy. Gold is not an ornament, but the ornament is nothing but gold. Whatever shape the ornament may assume and however different the ornaments are, there is only one reality, namely gold. So also with the bodies and the self. The single reality is the self. To identify oneself with the body and yet to seek happiness is like attempting to cross a river on the back of an alligator. The body identity is due to introversion and the wandering of the mind. To continue in that state will only keep one in an endless tangle and there will be no peace. Seek your source, merge in the self and remain all alone. Rebirth means discontent with the present state and desire to be born where there will be no discontent. Births, beings of the body cannot affect the self remains over even after the body perishes. The discontent is due to the wrong identity of the eternal self with the perishable body. The body is a necessary adjunct of the ego. If the ego is killed, the external self is revealed in all its glory. The body is the Cross, Jesus, the Son of Man, is the ego or I am the body idea. When he is crucified, he is resurrected as the glorious self, Jesus, the Son of God. Give up this life if thou wouldst live. Talk number 397. Devotee, fear is consequent on the possibility of non-existence. It pertains to the body. One is not aware of the body in sleep. One is not afraid of, but courts sleep. Whereas one dreads death. Why is this difference between the two outlooks? Maharshi, desire of sleep or fear of death are when the mind is active and not in the respective states themselves. The mind knows that the body entity persists and reappears after sleep. Therefore, sleep is not attended with fear, but the pleasure of non-bodily existence is sought. Whereas the mind is not sure of reappearance after the so-called death and dreads it. Dreads it. 14th April 1937, talk number 398. Dandapani, a resident devotee now on a North Indian tour, sent an extract from the Modern Psychological Review which stated that the dynamic center of the heart is on the right and not on the left, whereas the physical organ is on the left. Conversation followed on the subject. Maharshi, the Yoga Marga speaks of the six centers, each of which must be reached by practice and transcended until one reaches Sahasrara, where nectar is found and thus immortality. The yogis say that one enters into the pranadi, which starts from the sacral plexus, whereas the jnani say that the same nadi starts from the heart. Reconciliation between the seemingly contradictory statements is effected in the sacred doctrine, which distinctly states the yogic pranadi is from Muladhara and the Jnana pranadi is from the heart. The truth is that the pranadi should be entered. By yogic practice, one goes down, then rises up, wanders all through until the goal is reached. By jnana abhyasa, one settles down directly in the center. Devotee is not pra followed by pasyanti, etc. Maharshi, you are speaking of vak which is divided into number 1 para, number 2 pasyanti, number 3 madhyama, and number 4 vakhari. Vak is prana shakti, whereas the mind is Tejo Rupa or Chitta Shakti. The Shakti is the manifestation of the unmanifest origin. The yogis attach the highest importance to going up to Sahasrara, that is the brain center or the thousand petaled lotus. Some yogis say that there are other centers higher up with greater involutions. For example, 1 lakh, 100 petaled or 1 crore petaled ones. Let us omit them for the present. They point out the scriptural statement that the life current enters the body through the fontanelle and argue that yoga separation having come about that way, yoga union must also be effected in the reverse way. Therefore, we must by yoga practice gather up the pranas and enter the fontanelle for the consummation of yoga. The Jnanis point out that the yogi assumes the existence of the body, its separateness from the self, and therefore advises effort from reunion by the practice of yoga. In fact, the body is in the mind which has the brain for its seat, which again functions by light borrowed from another source as admitted by the yogis themselves in their fontanelle theory. The Jnani further argues if the light is borrowed, it must come from its native source. Go to the source direct and do not depend on borrowed resources. Just as an iron ball comes into being separate from the mass of iron, gets fiery in fire, later cools down, giving up the fire, but must again be made fiery to reunite with the original mass. So also the cause of separation must also form the fact of reunion. Again, if there is an image reflected. There must be a source and also accessories like the sun and pot of water for reflection. To do away with the reflection, either the surface is covered up corresponding to reaching the fontanelle according to the yogis, or the water is drained away, which is called tapas. Tapo brahmeti, tapas is Brahma. That is to say, the thoughts or the brain activities are made to cease. This is Jnana Marga. All these are, however, on the assumption that the Jiva is separate from the self or Brahma. But are we separate? No, says the Jnani. The ego is simply wrong identity of the self with the non-self, as in the case of a colorless crystal and its colored background. The crystal, though colorless, appears red because of its background. If the background is removed, the crystal shines in its original purity. So, it is with the self and the antahakaranas. Still again, the illustration is not quite appropriate, for the ego has its source from the self and is not separate like the background from the crystal. Having its source from the self, the ego must only be retraced in order that it might merge in its source. The center of the ego and its core is called the heart, the same as the self. A gentleman asked if the yogis also reach the anhata and thus realize the heart center as is done by the jnanis, but in a different way. Maharshi, Anhata is not the same as the heart center. If so, why should they wander further on to Sahasrara? Moreover, the question arises because of the sense of separateness persisting in us. We are never away from the heart center before reaching Anhata, or after passing it, one is only in the center. Whether one understands it or not, one is not away from the center. Practice of yoga or vichara is done, always remaining in the center only. Devotee, what is to be our sadhana? Maharshi, sadhana for the sadhaka is the sahaja of the siddha. Sahaja is the original state, so that sadhana amounts to the removal of the obstacles to the realization of this abiding truth. Devotee, is concentration of mind one of the sadhanas? Maharshi, concentration is not thinking one thing. It is, on the other hand, putting off all other thoughts which obstruct the vision of our true nature. All our efforts are only directed to lifting the veil of ignorance. Now it appears difficult to quell the thoughts. In the regenerate state, it will be found more difficult to call in thoughts. For are there things to think of? There is only the self. Thoughts can function only if there are objects. But there are no objects. How can thoughts arise at all? The habit makes us believe that it is difficult to cease thinking. If the error is found out, one would not be fool enough to exert oneself unnecessarily by way of thinking. Devotee, is not grace more effective than Abhyasa? Maharshi, Guru simply helps you in the eradication of ignorance. Does he hand over realization to you? Devotee, we are ignorant. Maharshi, inasmuch as you say you are ignorant, you are wise. Is he a madman who says that he is mad? Guru's grace is like a hand extended to help you out of water, or it makes you way easier for the removal of ignorance. Devotee, is it not like a medicine to cure the disease of avidya? Maharshi, what is medicine for? It is only to restore the patient to the original state of health. What is this talk of Guru, grace, God, etc.? Does the Guru hold you by the hand and whisper something in your ear? You imagine him to be like yourself. Because you are with a body, you think that he is also a body in order to do something tangible to you. His work lies within. How is Guru gained? God, who is immanent in his grace, takes pity on the loving devotee and manifests himself as a being according to the devotee's standard. The devotee thinks that he is a man and expects relationship as between bodies, but the Guru, who is God or self incarnate, works from within, helps the man to see the error of his ways, guides him in the right path until he realizes the self within. After such realization, the disciple feels, I was so worried before, I am after all the self, the same as before, but not affected by anything. Where is he who was miserable? He is nowhere to be seen. What should we do now? Only act up to the words of the Master, work within. The Guru is both within and without, so he creates conditions to drive you inward and prepares the interior to drag you to the center. Thus he gives a push from without and exerts a pull from within so that you may be fixed at the center. In sleep you are centered within simultaneously. With waking your mind rushes out, thinking this, that and all else. This must be checked. It is possible only for the agent who can work both within and without. Can he be identified with the body? We think that the world can be conquered by our efforts. When frustrated externally and driven internally, we feel, there is a power higher than man. The existence of the higher power must be admitted and recognized. The ego is a very powerful elephant and cannot be brought under control by anyone less than a lion, who is no other than the Guru in this instance, whose very look makes the elephant tremble and die. We will know in due course that our glory lies where we cease to exist. In order to gain that state, one should surrender oneself, saying, Lord, thou art my refuge. The master then sees this man is in a fit state to receive guidance, and so guides him. Devotee. What is self-surrender? Maharshi, it is same as self-control. Control is affected by removal of sanskaras which amply the functioning of the ego. The ego submits only when it recognizes the higher power. Such recognition is surrender or submission or self-control. Otherwise, the ego remains stuck up like the image carved on a tower, making a pretense by its strange look and posture that it is putting the tower on its shoulders. The ego cannot exist without the power but thinks that it acts of its own accord. Devotee, how can the rebellious mind be brought under control? Maharshi, either seek its source so that it may disappear or surrender that it may be struck down. Devotee, but the mind slips away from our control. Maharshi, be it so. Do not think of it. When you recollect yourself, bring it back and turn it inward. That is enough. No one succeeds without effort. Mind control is not one's birthright. The successful few owe their success to their perseverance. A passenger in a train keeps his load on the head by his own folly. Let him put it down. He will find the load reaches the destination all the same. Similarly, let us not pose as the doers but resign ourselves to the guiding power. Devotee. Swami Vivekananda says that a spiritual guru can transfer spirituality substantially to the disciple. Maharshi, is there a substance to be transferred? Transfer means eradication of the sense of being. The disciple. The master does it. Not that the man was something at one time and metamorphosed later into another. Devotee, is not grace the gift of the Guru? Mercy, God, grace and Guru are all synonymous and also eternal and immanent. Is not the self already within? Is not for the Guru to bestow it by his look? If a Guru thinks so, he does not deserve the name. The books say that there are so many kinds of diksha, initiations, hasta diksha, sparsh diksha, chakshu diksha, mano diksha, etc. They also say that the Guru makes some rites with fire, water, japa, mantra, etc. and calls such fantastic performances dikshas, as if the disciple Shishya becomes ripe only after such processes are gone through by the Guru. If the individual is sought, he is nowhere to be found. Such is the Guru. Such is Dakshinamurti. What did he do? He was silent. The disciples appeared before him. He maintained silence. The doubts of the disciples were dispelled, which means that they lost their individual identities. That is jnana, and not all the work is usually associated with it. Silence is the most potent form of work. However vast and emphatic the Shastras may be, they fail in their effect. The Guru is quiet and peace prevails in all. His silence is more vast and more emphatic than all the Shastras put together. These questions arise because of the feeling that having been here so long, heard so much, exerted so hard, one has not gained anything. The work proceeding within is not apparent. In fact, the Guru is always within you. Thayu Manovar says, O Lord, coming with me all along, the person never abandoning me and finally rescuing me. Such is the experience of realization. Srimad Bhagavad Gita says that the same in a different way. We too are not only now but have ever been so. Devotee, does not the Guru take a concrete form, Maharshi? What is meant by concrete? Because you identify your being with your body, you raise the question. You raise this question, find out if you are the body. The Gita says, Pram bhavam agyantaha, that those who cannot understand the transcendental nature of Sri Krishna are fools deluded by ignorance. The Master appears to dispel that ignorance as a Thyanuman Thaya Manovar puts, if he appears as a man to dispel the ignorance of a man, just as a deer is used as a decoy to capture the wild deer, he has to appear with a body in order to eradicate our ignorance. I am the body idea. So I end this video here. Next video number 26 will start with the talk number 399. Thanks a lot. Namaskar my dear friends. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaskar. Namaskar.